Welcome to Becoming is Messy, where we dive deep into the journey of survival, transformation, and everything in between. I'm your host, Megan Dawson, here to share the honest, unfiltered stories behind my own process of becoming. Life isn't a pretty and perfect straight line, and neither is becoming the person we're meant to be. Here, we embrace the ups, the downs, and all the beautiful, chaotic, messy moments that shape who we are. Whether you're in the thick of change or reflecting on past transformations, this space is for real conversations about what it means to grow, stumble, and rise again. So get comfy, settle in, and let's get messy. Hello, Messies. Today's guest is someone who turns some of the hardest moments in life, grief, loss, goodbyes, into something unexpectedly beautiful. Ben Kintisch is a cantor, chaplain, a middle school music teacher, and the creator of Life Review, the Hospice Musical, a deeply moving and sometimes laugh-out-loud musical inspired by his real-life work in hospice care. With degrees from Brown and the Jewish Theological Seminary, Ben's journey blends scholarship, sacred service, and stagecraft. He's spent years supporting patients and families through life's final season. In 2016, during chaplaincy training, he started hearing the kind of stories that don't just stick with you, they sing. He called his wife one night and said, "These stories want to be songs." He did, and Life Review was born. What started as a single bedside-inspired song became a multi-composer collaboration, a 2-act musical, a tool for healing and grief education, and a standing ovation generating work of art that has traveled across the country. Ben lives in Columbia, Maryland with his wife, daughter, and dog, and today he is here with us. Ben, thank you for joining us on Becoming is Messy.
Thanks for having me, Megan. You did awesome with the intro.
Thank you.
A slightly out-of-date bio.
Hey.
There's now 2 dogs.
Oh, okay.
And I need to talk to my publicist, who looks a lot like me, and tell him that I need to get some consistency across all 12 platforms. Bio says I live with my wife, daughter, and dog. And some of them now have pluralized it. So, for all of you keeping track at home, we have 2 dogs. In the Kintisch household.
Okay. We don't want to forget
Peach.
The other one.
Yeah,
Yes.
She's the tick-hound beagle. She's the one who's been with us for a while. She's ornery. And the new dog is big and silly and ridiculous. His name is Buddy. He is an English Springer Spaniel. High energy, purebred hunting dog. We would have never gotten this dog in a normal circumstance. Like, this kind of dog costs a fortune. Looks like a Disney movie, that kind of dog. But we saw this emergency foster notice on a Facebook community group. It was a synagogue member who I knew, an older couple. By the way, folks, if you're going to get a dog, if you're very old, don't get the highest energy breed known to man.
Good advice.
Yeah, so it didn't work out for that family. We took care of Buddy on an emergency basis, and our daughter, then 12 or 13, instantly fell hard in love. And we said, okay, we can keep him as long as the 2 dogs don't fight. We have to do choreography with the food. One eats in that room, shut the door. One eats in the other room.
Yes,
and you know what we're talking about.
Very much. And please pass my apologies on to Buddy. Apologize for missing him, but I wish him the very best.
He's probably right outside that door waiting for an interview to be done, but that's it.
Our golden doodle is Luna. She's probably on the other side of that door. She doesn't eat until 5. Right now, it's almost 3 here. She'll start the countdown, reminding us every day. She thinks we're going to forget, but we won't forget Luna.
Nice.
Well, thank you for filling us in and correcting that. How about we continue on with this current season of your life? Help us set the stage for our conversation today and give us a little bit of insight of what's going on right now.
What a refreshing question. Most interviewers go straight to tell us about your backstory. So maybe you'll give me that on question 2.
You got it. You got it. I like to ease in light, and then we'll do the twists and turns and darkness. That'll be number 2. But let's keep it light.
Before we go down into the basement, let's
That's
hallway.
right.
I'm sitting, you can see behind me, I've got all this colorful art on my back wall, a tapestry from Guatemala, I assure you. That same back wall can be turned into a stage-like space. It's hard to see, but there are a couple of white, almost invisible curtain hooks. There's one there and one there. I have a really long, skinny curtain rod and black curtains, so I can make this room into a studio. During the height of COVID, I used this same space as my performance space, and I streamed my show over a dozen times to audiences around the US, once in England. So one can be versatile, even in a small space. The other thing I want to mention, I have a nice houseplant garden. Every summer I have more houseplants because I'm a school teacher, and I bring home some of my school plants to home. So they vacation with me at home and then back to school, where they bring some green energy and some prettiness to the hallway outside of my classroom. I teach K-4 general music at a private school in College Park, Maryland. I live here in Columbia, Maryland, so it's about 30 minutes and change drive. So that's my view here. The other kind of funny detail, the day of this recording, is the tail end of 3 weeks of me being a pretend bachelor. My wife and daughter go off to a sleepaway camp together. Daughter is a camper and wife as a member of the wellness team. She's trained
nice.
counselor, as in able to help the kids who are sad, missing home, fighting with their friends, whatever. She's that lady with a walkie-talkie.
Good for them.
Yes.
And good for you to be able to get that time alone. That's always
It's
a nice,
okay.
refreshing time.
It's fun. Sometimes it's lonely. Enjoying a
Understood.
chance to talk with a person through
Yeah.
a computer screen.
Okay, now let's go backwards a little bit. We'll get to
Please.
the dark and twisty a little bit. Every becoming story has its mix of messy. What are some of the twists and turns that have led you to this today?
So I'm going to acknowledge that different aspects of my messy becoming are for a longer, deeper interview and maybe another show.
Yeah, give us the cliff notes.
I'll say that if the destination today is confident performer playwright, then the becoming journey has been an interesting one. I'd say I was a little kid who loved theater. I remember as an elementary school student, we got a chance to go see the high school do their dress rehearsal.
Yeah.
So that every year we would go the Thursday before the show went up. So I went a couple years. I remember that was exciting. I remember being part of the junior high school and the high school productions. One year, my senior year, when I was an aspiring classical vocalist, I said no thanks on being in the musical so that I could be really focused and ready on my college auditions. But I still wanted to be involved, so I was the assistant costume person and worked with the head of costumes. It was random because I don't know anything about sewing, but I learned a lot and was basically carrying a lot of stuff. And it was fun. Spent a lot of time with this teacher, Mrs. Hughes, who I was fond of, so that was fine. Anyway, I always loved theater, mostly being on stage, but I'm just mentioning that now and again backstage as well. And always as a fan. I went to Northwestern as a voice major, which felt like a very big deal at the time. It's a top program for classical voice. And it only took me a few months. It only took me a few months, Megan, to realize I was not conservatory material. Even though I went into one of the top conservatories in the country, it was literally more statistically difficult for me to get into Northwestern voice than it was to get into some of the fancy programs out east, whose names I shall not drop. Because they only had, because they had maybe 8 or 10 spots for voice majors, and they would get hundreds of applicants per year. So I'm not good at math, but that's probably like a 1% admit rate.
Yeah.
So when I got in there, I was like, oh, this is my big break. I must pursue this. And what I found was that there was a lot about it that was exciting. But then again, college in general was really exciting. So let's just be real. Friendship, romance, sex, alcohol, drugs.
Yep.
It's all a hell of a lot more alluring and enticing than going to the practice studio and working on
Yeah.
being a college kid enthusiastically. I was much better at that than being a conservatory student. But I don't want to make it that it was all about saying yes to debauchery and no to conservatory singing. There's this famous story where we had a master class. That's when a high-flying musician comes in, performs a bit, and then interacts with the students. So we had an impressive young opera singer who was an alum of Northwestern Voice. He gave a mini recital, maybe 2 or 3 songs. We were all like, he was so powerful, your face is squished back.
Yes. Oh,
And then the Q&A. And I raised my hand, I was like person number 3, and I said, tell us what your life is like. What he described ended up being rather unappealing to me. He said, I wake up in my hotel room, and I have to figure out where I am. Then I go to the gym in the hotel, do a gentle warm-up, some stretching. I do some gentle vocalises in the hotel room and do a steam bath, do some silent score review for 2 hours. Then I'll have a healthy lunch. Then I'll rest a little bit for 1 hour. Then I'll do my main warm-ups and practice from 2 to 4, then rest. If we have a show, I will be in makeup by 6. Show goes from 7 to 11 because operas are forever. They're endless. Out of makeup, back in the hotel, midnight or 1. If it's not a show night, we just rehearse from 6 to 9. And he made a point of saying, it's very exciting to perform, but I don't feel like I see the cities where I travel. And I thought to myself, in a room of 100 voice majors, undergrads and grad students, they all wanted to be him. And I was like, I don't want to be him.
wow. I feel like at that young of an age is impressive, and I'm glad that you were able to realize that so young.
At least not for opera singing. And I
Yeah.
pursued, you'll hear as I do a quick and dirty of the rest of my career, many of my job decisions may be called serendipitous, accidental.
Yeah,
Or
of
if you
course.
want, if you're the person who says all things are planned, then I was simply
Yes.
letting the fates unfurl the scroll that has been pre-written for me, however you describe such things. But I often tell people that my career has been rather zigzag and certainly not linear in any kind of creative way, where I am trained as a chaplain, as a cantor, as a music teacher. I happen to have a bonus certification in special education, so I know a lot of stuff. The becoming for this project that is my dream, here I'll flash the business card. Whoa. Life Review, the Hospice
There you
Musical.
go. Yes, yes.
That dream took a very long time to realize, and it was a rather messy becoming, and I think that genesis is what I want to focus on today. So I gave the
Yes.
backstory, who loved music and loved theater.
Yeah.
That was me. I made it to conservatory, so I was definitely a high-level young singer, and continued to be even when I decided to transfer out of Northwestern. I landed at Brown University. They were very gracious and admitted me twice in a row. So I was like, thanks, guys. That was nice of you. It was a great college. I did not do a whole lot with my singing. I think I did 1 semester with the Jewish a cappella group, but it just wasn't the right fit for what I wanted, so I left the group. I ended up joining the rugby team at Brown University, all in on this wannabe jock persona. I'm not a jock, for the record, but it was fun being on the rugby team. A little dude, but I got the little guy position. If I couldn't take a guy down by 2 legs, I'd grab by 1 leg and hold on for dear life till someone came over and helped. That was me on the rugby field. But the fact that I was a singer and a lover of music was always in the back of my head. One fun fact about rugby, because it's a British sport, it has the pub culture that soccer, or football as they call it in the British world, they sing. Guys sing.
Oh, fun.
So I ended up being an above average rugby drink up singer. So,
Yes, I went to Penn State and our rugby team. They were a
Gups.
pub group. Oh, of course. And it was a fun group for sure.
Yeah, especially if you like big dudes. A good club to hang around.
They were fun.
Or little scrappy ones who are eager to
Yes.
sing.
There were a few of those too.
Yeah. That was a fun departure for me. When I graduated college, my lifelong interest in Judaism remained a lifelong interest. My lifelong skill as a singer remained a skill. Even though it was mostly just being trotted out drunkenly at pub sing-alongs after rugby games, I remained a good singer. When you're not sure what to do with your life after college, what do? You go to grad school. I was looking at different grad schools, and it was like a law school. I guess I like to read and write and argue, but I didn't think I really wanted to be a lawyer. And of course, all my life, since I'm a Jewish guy who was always good at singing and went to synagogue, every older person ever in synagogue was like, Benjamin, you should be a cantor. Cantor, again, meaning So I had been told that my whole life, and finally, when I wasn't sure what to do with my life in my early 20s, I said, maybe I'll take a look at that. When I logged into the website and looked at the course descriptions, a lot of the classes were similar to what I'd done as an undergrad. I had gotten a Bachelor of Arts in Judaic Studies, and I took classes like Jewish fiction, Jewish history, and Jewish philosophy. I did more of that at a graduate level at JTS, which is one of the better Jewish affiliated institutions of higher learning in the world. It's small, but quite spectacular in its might. And I jumped in 2 feet into the deep end, a decision that my older self regards with some curiosity, but it was the decision I made at the time. And I'll tell you, I went through graduate school somewhat reluctant. And I think I had a little bit of a sourpuss attitude, partially because, like, being an undergraduate at Brown University was so much fun. When I was there, it was a famously fun place to be a college kid. And I was also a little bit of a late bloomer, socially and romantically. Even playing rugby, like, that's a crazy development for a formerly scrawny and awkward kid. To go and be an athlete like that, it was an exciting time to be alive. Graduate school couldn't ever top that. In a certain sense, it wasn't fair to graduate school. And dear listener, dear viewer, if you went to graduate school, chances are it wasn't as much fun as whatever school you went to when you were 20.
I think it's similar for those after undergrad transitioning right into...
Excuse me.
Of course.
I'm sorry. That makes it make myself laugh.
No worries. I've been holding on to a sneeze, so it's going to come at any point. I can feel it bubbling up.
No, and
Mine will be coming.
I am awaiting your sneeze with bated
I
breath.
feel it, so we'll see if it shows. Usually I'm a 3-in-a-row sneezer, so we'll see if we get all of them.
Oh, that's lucky.
Yeah.
I like that.
What I was going to
Okay.
say, I think those of us that go right from undergrad to the professional world have a similar... It's hard to leave the fun of college, the youth behind. I feel like the transition into young adulthood is just a hard time in life.
It is difficult. It is easy to forget what a loving cocoon college is. Just the fact that you're 20, your body looks better than it ever has been and ever will again. It's not just that you're at the height of your virility, but also that you are given housing and someone else has paid for.
That's
You're
right.
given meals and someone else has paid for, typically.
Yeah, your schedule's set. And just getting to learn and meet new people.
If
there's
you're
just a lot of
strategic,
excitement
you
there.
can have classes for 3.5 days of the week. So you have like
Yes,
a
I get
weekend
it.
every week.
Exactly. I would guess graduate school or just the end of college in
That's
general.
right.
I just
It's gonna
think
be a
being
bit
a
of a
young adult
letdown.
is
That's right.
hard. And it's a hard time.
I went
So
through
here
that
you
a
are.
bit.
You're in your mid-20s now.
Yeah, I
and-
happen to have gotten married, so that worked out okay. We're still married. We're actually celebrating our 20th this summer. We were a young married couple and enjoyed being in New York City. That was fun. I didn't love graduate school. For better or worse, that was the case. An important thing happened, though, in terms of my creative journey. In this small program with 6, 7, 8 per class, one of my classmates was a guy named Lance. Lance, former University of Miami music major, which, if you don't know, dear listener, is a very hotshot school. one of the top programs in the country. He was a piano major from one of these top programs, and he said, I've written some music, but I don't have words. Anyone here write lyrics? And I'm like, me? Now, I had never written lyrics before, but I was eager to try, and it felt like a low-stakes place, a class with 6 or 7 around the table. He seemed to need me more than I needed him, right? So what could I lose? Thus began my first ever song co-writing. It was fun. It was low stakes. We successfully co-wrote 2, possibly 3 songs loosely on Hanukkah themes. We were both at Jewish Theological Seminary, so a holiday-themed album idea seems appropriate. And it was fun for me. I discovered real quick that I could turn a phrase. I'm a clever guy and very verbal. When I sat down with paper and started writing on a given topic, rhyming phrases poured out of me quickly. I had good raw talents. So that was a key moment in my songwriting. Not much happened with that album, but it was fun to have a few songs that turned into something real. That was unusual because usually songs begin with words first, not always. But since working with him, I've always been lyrics first. But in that case, Lance had music. He handed it to me and he said, write to that. And I did.
Yeah.
But you have to start somewhere. So that was messy beginning number 1.
Yeah.
And then in terms of my life as a Jewish musician, a cantor is a kind of sacred musician. It's a double major. You get a degree ordained as a cantor, and you also get a master's in sacred music. So it's a master's level conservatory type degree. Very serious level music learning. I did all that learning, including piano, voice, chorus, conducting, composition. I love that stuff. I did some electives just to wrinkle that brain of mine, including another course in Jewish fiction, where most of my classmates were these effortlessly brilliant undergrads. They're like, yeah, no big deal. I stayed up till 3 and I looked this good. And I'm like, oh, to be 20 already at the time.
Yeah.
It was a great experience, the learning parts, despite feeling very uncertain about my job future. And sure enough, at the time I finished, most of my classmates, the typical thing for seminary, and I think this is across different faith traditions, however the placement process works, usually you're in school for several years and at the end, you kind of work with the institution or related organizations to get you a job, what they call the placement process. So I had to go into the process at the time that I graduated yesterday, but I wasn't ready for it.
All right.
And it was not the right time for me and my family. But I needed to do something. And I remembered that I really enjoyed doing this Jewish song leading thing, as in teaching music in a camp setting or a community setting. So I'm clarifying because in my job now, I'm a music teacher professionally, and music teachers always want to say, we are music teachers, we are not song leaders. A lot of song leaders are like, I'm a song leader specialist. So there's definitely overlap in that Venn diagram. I started as a song leader, singing loudly, playing guitar, getting a room full of people to sing and clap along with me. Later, via the charter school world, I was able to enter the classroom. You may know that one advantage for all of the shortcomings that charter schools have, and I could tell you many of them, one upside is they tend to be more open on the requirements, as in they will often hire someone with masters in anything and then give them help to become a teacher. Sometimes that works and sometimes it doesn't, but it does mean that
I get it.
For second career people, like a musician who wants to try to become a music teacher, they will often go to a charter school because going to a regular neighborhood school via the city public schools may require going back to college for years.
Got it.
So I did some graduate school on the side. I got my state certification from New York State in both music education and special education. I enjoyed that learning, but boy, did I learn by jumping in the deep end and swimming. I was in this charter school for 2.5 years, a different one for 1 year. I'll just say that I love to teach teaching students who are carrying trauma, who are living in chaotic environments, it's not for the faint of heart. I got very good in my final year teaching in New York City. I was teaching in East New York, a neighborhood of Brooklyn that is among the poorest zip codes in the 5 boroughs. I would describe it as my lucky students were in a homeless shelter. My unlucky students were in less stable housing. The lucky kids were in the projects, the unlucky homeless shelters. Really,
Wow.
everyone was in institutional housing.
Yeah.
And a big part of my job was settling the room into a place where we could then make music. It took a lot of emotional energy to bring things down. And then occasionally when things erupted, to settle it again. I later learned in my chaplaincy training, which is the next zigzag of the journey, that what I sought in the school classroom was something I would later learn is a thing in chaplaincy. It's called the non-anxious presence. So a good therapist, a good nurse, doctor with a good bedside manner, they come and sit next to you and you're like,
Yes, I know exactly what you mean.
not every
Yes.
caregiver has that.
And
Ones
that's
that
how I
have it-
told you. I
Yeah.
feel like, Ben, that reminds me of when we first jumped on this call. I shared with you that before we started recording that I've had a messy week. As soon as we started talking, I feel like you just brightened my experience. And so I feel like I
glad-
got to experience that calming presence that you bring.
Glad to bring a little bit of joy and a little bit of calming as well. It's a skill that surprised me when I was training as a chaplain, that it was such a specific skill and one at which I had to work so diligently. Think about it. I am a natural entertainer. My superpower skill is I can sing really well and loud in a big room. Look at me, listen to me. And that's similar for teaching. All of you people in the room, sit down, do what I say, and be
Yeah,
quiet.
that's so true.
There-
What a great
it's-
observation.
A chaplain takes all of that and inverts it. You go into the
Yes.
room and then you step back. I was describing chaplaincy in a recent interview. Involves often finding a folding chair. Why? Because you want to get down at eye level and sit comfortably and really be able to talk with your person who you visit. So you have to take the ego, in my case, of the fabulous voice, in the case of maybe a wise rabbi, his or her ability to sermonize or quote the Bible. It's like a party trick, but it's not really used much in chaplaincy. In the play that you'll hear about later, one of the big mistakes our hero makes early on is he tries to flex his wisdom and his cleverness, and he falls badly on his face. The lesson he learns is instead of sermonizing and teaching, he needs to be quiet and listen.
Yeah, it was that shift from teaching to eventually holding space and connecting. I think so many of us eventually get to as we grow older. And I think I'm excited to hear some of your stories from hospice.
Yeah.
I feel like even in my work, that's a common one, especially people with trauma backgrounds eventually reach a point where they are seeking people to listen and hold space, not tell them what to do and not tell them how to do it, but to just listen to their stories and validate their experiences. Isn't that what we all need at the end of the day? We just want to be seen, right?
We want to be seen and heard. I
Yeah.
know in my Instagram feed, I'm a musical theater fan, so there's a lot of stuff about the Hamilton 10-year anniversary and the famous last line of Hamilton, who lives, who dies, who tells your story. The play is about shining a light on the stories that would otherwise be hidden. Like the masterwork that is Hamilton gives us personal stories, hidden stories of the famous people, the well-known people. I'm blowing up stories that are hidden of fictionalized versions of regular people. Life as a chaplain, which we can finally get to in our zigzag tale. After doing 5 years as a public school music teacher, I chose to try my hand at that synagogue job. I got a job in a suburban synagogue in New Jersey, and right away I noticed very elderly congregation. Right away, I was called to the hospital regularly, co-lead funerals on a regular basis. And with the funerals come the traditional bereavement services, what the Jews call Shiva minions, or 7 days of mourning prayer services. I was leading these services, doing all kinds of bereavement work, and doing this settings all around the community. And I felt a little bit out of my depth. I had a good instincts with people. I always have been comfortable with older people and sick people. My first teacher, who was a teacher for the hospice placement, joked, "So with hospice, there's a lot of dying. Are you okay with that?" And I was like, "I think so." And he's like, "I guess we'll find out. If you aren't comfortable with death and dying, you don't want to work in a hospice. Similarly, if you don't want to service the needs of elderly people, you can't work in a synagogue in America today. Or for that matter, a church or a mosque, I'm guessing. Because I know mainline faith institutions across the faith spectrum, mainline in particular, that is center and left of center, are aging rapidly. The fundamentalists are the only ones that have the kids still. And that's a different episode. That's not my brand of Judaism. I could see where the current and future was. If I was going to be a synagogue professional, I was going to be having to help a lot of elderly people. It was my inspiration for taking chaplaincy class. It wasn't that I wanted to be a chaplain when I grew up. And then when you train to be a chaplain, it's basically a once-a-week graduate level class led by an expert chaplain. Usually a small group, 4 to 6 people, but never bigger than 7 or 10. And usually with a home base that is a clinical facility, a hospice, a hospital, a nursing home, an elder care, some place where you can work as a chaplain and earn many hours. So in my 4 years of chaplaincy training, I did my first year at Center for Hope Hospice in New Jersey. Then we moved to Maryland. I did 2 years with elder care at Hebrew Home of Greater Washington. That's, let's just call it suburban Washington, D.C. And in the 4th year, I did hospice work again, training with a remote program, but doing the hours with a local community hospice organization. My specialty is hospice and elder care. And across those 4 years, I did over 1,000 hours of supervised visitations. So lots and lots of time. Hello.
Yeah, I would say at the time you commented not everybody feels comfortable with the hospice care, elder care, being there for people at the end stage of life. But on the other hand, you don't get to be comfortable until you experience that.
Yes, and so one would not apply for a chaplaincy program with a clinical home base you were uncomfortable with, right?
Of course.
So I also looked at a hospital placement, but at the time, my wife and I had a young child. We didn't want to do mandatory overnights where I would be jarred awake to go tell family whose kid had been killed in a crash. That is one kind of chaplain work, right?
Understood.
Let me pray with you. Hospice is very family friendly. I heard this from a lot of nurses. Like a lot of nurses at the end of their career, when they're 40 plus, switch to hospice care. It is physically less demanding because you have fewer patients. You're doing more intensive caregiving, but it's a very different kind of caregiving where you're managing symptoms when you're an ICU nurse. Some cases. It also included more time for the nurses and members of the whole care team to connect with family members, especially in a residential hospice care facility, which is where I worked for that year when I wrote the songs that would become the play. So the fictionalized version of hospice on play, on stage, that is inspired by the real life Center for Hope Hospice. Were community moments like, because you could have someone with late stage Parkinson's who's not dying anytime soon, but still qualifies for hospice care, is mentally with it. And so his wife and kids come in for a raucous birthday party. And it doesn't look like a birthday party at home. Are you going to get two more?
I feel like
Maybe.
they've been stuck in there.
It surprised me the first time I saw it that you could have a lively birthday party in hospice. And though you arrive there for a specific reason, as in to get loving care on your way to your dying days, it's not a depressing place. The place center where I worked was specifically quite beautiful. One facility was a former residence for wayward young women they used prior to World War II. A girl who got pregnant be hidden away in secret and returned with the child located
for sure
to the Midwest or some orphan train or something. I don't know how that worked, but that was a thing. So Center for Hope's first facility was one of those places, but repurposed into a beautiful residential facility. And then the other one they built new. That one was a little shinier, cost a bit more, and I believe they made money on that one, which subsidized the other one that gave charity care. I worked in both of these two facilities as a chaplain and would go room to room, knocking on doors. I loved it, Megan. I loved meeting the people. I loved having these conversations, and this is when the show was born.
Hey, Messies. Quick pause before we dive back in. If you're loving these conversations and want a little extra support on your own becoming journey, head over to megandawson.com. You can sign up for my weekly email. It's like a little love note from the messy middle, filled with stories, tools, and truths to help you feel less alone. And if you're looking for personalized support, I've got a few spots open for one-to-one coaching. If that's been on your heart, let's talk. All right, back to the episode. I'm curious, before we get to the show, just in general, your time as a chaplain then, not everybody does witness somebody's final days or even final months. As you've talked about, it's not all sad in that whole process. There is joy and it's ups and downs, and just some of your perspective of the impact it had on you, and also just your observation of what actually matters at the end.
Wow, big questions there. I will say that the first year of chaplaincy training and the time I was visiting room to room as part of that training, that was an incredibly impactful year. It happened to also coincide with a year that was professionally tumultuous. The year started steady, and then mid-year, all of a sudden, lawyering up to get his package leaving. It was a situation. But while the job was like, what the heck is going on? What was steady was this weekly class and the support that I got from these 4 colleagues. Non-denominational group prayer where we kind of prayed for each other. I remember the night I got a cell phone call, or it was basically I saw the writing on the wall that this synagogue was going to be parting ways with me, and it was going to be not on the terms I wanted. So it was going to be, and I remember bringing that upset to my class that night, and I was just a wreck, and they helped me through it. And then I also remember when the visits themselves were so impactful. You were asking about what matters and so forth. Talk about perspective. My day job, so to speak, was crashing down. I was a guy, let me think, it was nearly 10 years ago. So I was in my mid-30s. This was a very big job for me. Remember that funny path where I went to seminary for 5 years and then didn't become a cantor. I finally did become cantor. I was making big money, working my tail off 6 days a week. I thought I was doing pretty darn good. And then all of a sudden they're like, here's 20 ways you can fix it. And we all know that those documents out the door. Roadmap towards getting fired.
That's right.
So I called my lawyer and we dealt with it, and it was all very horrible. Mostly because I confused, honestly, even in the retelling 10 years later, it's less specifically traumatic, but it's still a hurtful story.
Of course.
Because I was actually objectively quite good at it.
Yeah.
I may not have been the right match for this community, and I've since learned that they have a terrible habit of churning through their clergy every 2 to 4 years. And that's not healthy for anyone,
Yes.
especially when people move and settled their
Yeah.
family. I moved for this job. But here's the thing. If it weren't for this job, I would have never started training as a chaplain. If it weren't for I've started writing this musical, and we know the rest is history.
Yeah.
That job in the retelling remains a unique trauma, at least my top 5 worst jobs. Definitely top 3. But it also was the experience where I began creating the most important thing I think I've ever done.
Yeah.
I think the Hospice Musical is the most important thing I've ever created.
Yes.
And based on the response from audiences around the country, virtually around the world, I played London once across the computer.
That's exciting.
Yeah.
Yes.
People
So how
are
in that low
laughing and
point,
people are crying.
it's incredible.
And it's
How in that low point, what you were describing, that was a hard time for you. How out of that did you start getting that inspiration?
so
Yeah.
So the songwriting began before the job loss, which is probably key because I don't know that I would have started something so bold, but for feeling like I can do it. You have to be a little bit foolish or a little bit naive to be a creative person and do something no one's ever done before. Because the logical person says, no, you can't do that because it's never been done before, or you shouldn't do that. Sometimes morality is applied to creative people, like, you shouldn't dress that way. People have before like that. And
Yes.
do a musical about hospice. That's not a topic that you can laugh about, but I say
That's
absolutely
right.
you can laugh and sing and dance about it.
I know I read somewhere that you said the stories you were hearing that you were experiencing in hospice wanted to be songs.
Correct. I said that.
So how does your musical mind experience such a hardship? Something that's not most people would say, I want to turn this into a song. But for you, what did that do in you to inspire you to think that this topic could be one song, let alone this play that you've created?
I mentioned earlier that despite having mixed feelings about the seminary in general, I had planted the seed, Ben, as songwriter. Begun to have that identity. And I think for creators in particular, but anytime we are trying to adopt a new identity, the becoming, if you will.
Yes, yes.
We have to take some baby steps. There's that silly old aphorism, fake it till you make it. I raised my hand confidently for Lance to be his lyricist. No business being that confident.
Yeah.
That may be something wonderful and ridiculous about my personality. And because of that, what Jews call chutzpah, or Americans might call nerve, what Barack Obama would call audacity, I have jumped into a lot of situations where my previous experience might not necessarily warrant entry into that situation. This is something that happens to new creators all the time. I think, Megan, you've probably gone through this as a new podcaster, right? When you first start anything, especially if it feels like a new identity, it always feels like fraud at every turn.
Definitely.
So for me, the first thing was even to co-write with Lance. Did you hear how I retold that story? I made a point of stressing his credentials.
Yeah, of course.
Well,
we all do that,
maybe
right?
that makes my story a bit shinier, but it all reveals this ongoing deep insecurity of who I am.
That's what
as a
I heard.
creator.
Yes.
Who am I? This guy from Miami? He wants my
That's
sure.
so true.
And he
right?
was like, no, Ben, you're funny. I bet you can write a
Yes.
funny song. Sure enough, I wrote a very funny song. 2 or 3 of them. So that formative experience of doing pretty good beginning of making something, not something great, but making something, completed song or 2 or 3, gave me the nerve, the chutzpah, the audacity to say, these stories want to be songs. I've heard myself share about this apocryphal origin story many times because I've told this story on many podcast interviews, Megan, and there are a few key details to this story. One, there have been hundreds, probably thousands of hospice workers out there, and more broadly, like hospital workers, where people visit each other, even nursing home workers, and they hear stories. And there have been different plays and musicals, but no one's really decided to go and make a musical about hospice of
Exactly.
life. So for whatever reason, I was the guy to do this. And whenever I say, who am I to be one of the, meaning like that imposter syndrome voice is questioning a worth to be in the room, to be considered for this grant or this fellowship or this appearance, right? Sometimes I need to remind myself, like, I am exactly the right person because hundreds and thousands of people have worked in hospice and no one had this idea.
Nobody
and then I
had
made it
your
happen.
zigzag, right?
My
You had the
zigzag, right.
zigzag that led you to
Yeah, all of that
all the right
messy,
pieces.
stumbling. The other thing is I also needed to, I think something that's unusual about me and maybe typical of a person with such a zigzag journey is I keep beginning, for better or worse. A new therapist diagnosed me with adult ADD in 4 seconds. And then he was like, did your previous therapist not tell you that? I'm like, what? It's very funny. But he said that not every person with ADD, but many struggle with different aspects of executive function that manifests itself in some professional challenges. Not always, but sometimes. And I can tell you, I'm a hell of a lot better in front of the kids on the rug doing a 45-minute music lesson that has some structure and flow, but also has a little bit of room and improv and a little bit of me reading the room, as opposed to some colleagues that are really good at doing curricular maps.
Yep.
Want
I'm the
me to like
same.
sit
Yes.
in a noisy room with other colleagues who are yamming.
I'm relating to that.
To do a high energy task with distractions
Yes.
after. I'm like, I can't.
No.
Please
no.
send me written instructions and I'll do it Sunday night.
That's
I'm
right.
going home to crawl up into a ball.
I'm going to ask a creative question.
Please, I love creative questions.
About Will It Still Snow?
Yes.
Yeah. If I read this right, it was the first song for the play that
Correct.
you wrote.
First song. Also, I borrowed the title from a poem written by my mother.
Oh, I love that. And it was written late at night after a patient visit. I'm just curious how it felt to take those lyrics and start a melody and put that together. You're bringing
So I
your
write the
baby to life.
words. There's 16 songs in the full-length
Yeah.
show, 8 songs in the tighter cabaret show that I perform by myself. I wrote the music to 1. 15 were co-written by composer friends.
Okay.
So in the case of the writing of the songs, it was like writing poetry.
Yep.
In most, I looked to make it metrical or metered, having a little bit of a pulse or a beat, so it would work with music when paired. For Will It Still Snow, it began with a conceit. It began with an idea. The poem, when I read it, I liked the title, and I asked immediately for permission. Can I use it for a song? And my mother-in-law said, sure, you got it. When I hear that phrase, will it still snow? I finish the sentence, when I'm gone, and it felt like something that a person might wonder as they're trailing off. I knew that from the book of poetry, Cora Fry, my mother-in-law is named Rosellen Brown. The book is probably out of print, but you could get it for $1 on your favorite used book site. It's nicer than Amazon. Use thrift books.
Good
anyway,
call.
So Cora Fry, if you're interested, like poetry, it's an interesting work because it's a novel written entirely in poems.
Okay.
And the main character is Cora Fry.
I
So
love
she
that.
writes this poem, Will It Still Snow When I'm Gone? And she's imagining life after she's gone, ruminating about her mortality. Not in a deathbed scene, just like...
How is it when you hear your words paired with the composed music?
I don't know about opening Christmas gifts on Christmas. Heard everyone rhapsodize about it. We'll use that metaphor. Like opening up Christmas gifts on Christmas.
I love it.
It was just so exciting, especially because the majority of these co-writes for Life Review happened pen pal style, meaning I wrote the lyric usually in longhand, in a journal book, often decoupage, because I like to decorate my songwriting books. Makes it appealing. So handwritten at first, then edited, then typed, then edited again. So usually 4 drafts by the time I've handed it off to my co-writer. I worked with 2 main composers, Michael Miller and Jason Spiewak. One additional composer, Andy Basov, co-wrote 1 song. Sadly, he died recently, so rest in peace, Andy, but thank you for your contribution. He also did some arrangements. Miriam Cook helped with arrangements. And then more recently, a 5th composer, Dennis Erickson of University of Maryland, now Peabody Institute at Johns Hopkins. Very impressive young composer. He's doing arrangements, taking the piano parts and rewriting them for violin, cello, clarinet, flute, piano. So it sounds a bit more Broadway when he's done with it. So we are expanding this project ever more. And so coming back to your question, what does it feel like or sound like when my words are paired with music? It's a thrill. It's very exciting. There's a new level of drama and emotion that comes with music. That song about snow, it's beautiful. Both of my main composers are guys of a similar vintage. Mike is a bit older, but we all love Carole King and Billy Joel and Elton John.
Oh, yes.
As piano-heavy rock gods. And so I've been told that a lot of our stuff sounds like those 3 writers, to which I say, good, I'll take the compliment. Those are great composers, and my words sound like my words, so I'm happy with them. It's just so exciting to work with these musicians. The initial gift of the scratch demo, when they sang the words that I'd given them to their melody, a little bit of simple piano, then eventually edited piano parts, now more recently reorchestrated to instrumental parts. Each time, Megan, it is a new creative gift to open.
Oh, yes.
That's totally separate from all of my ambitions about sharing this thing with more and more people. Yes,
Yeah.
I want to share this thing with more and more people, so hopefully beautiful music is part of that. In the meantime, there's a lot of very special joy and satisfaction in the co-writing process, for sure.
So in addition to the special joy, the touching parts of it, there's also humor in the show.
For sure.
Why was it important to you to bring some levity in a story about death?
This was an agreement Jason Spiewak and I had at our very first meeting. He invited me over to talk about the project. He poured some very nice brown whiskey, and we sipped and laughed for a few hours. He said, we need a funny opening number just to break the ice. And I said, that's a good idea. He said something, spoiler alert, everyone is dying. And I said, spoiler alert, everybody dies in the end.
Yes.
And that's it. So he gets a co-write credit for saying spoiler.
Awesome.
I got the phrase that sings right. And then I went and wrote an epically long song because it's a list song. What I do is I list all of the categories of people who die in the end, which, by the way, is all categories of people ever.
Of course, that's great.
That's our opening number, and it's very funny, and it's delivered in a sort of vaudeville style where I'm old-timey singing, and there's a kick line at the end, which gets a big laugh. People love a kick line. And the other song that's very funny that people love is only in the full-length show. It did not survive the constriction required for the one-man show, but this is a hilariously raunchy R&B number called This Time, and it's about the patients in bed, the hospice patients, lusting after the care team.
That is great.
Yeah, and part of the hook is like, this time, let me undress you. This time, I want you.
That is fantastic.
I'll sponge, and then
I can't wait
I'll
to see
towel
the
you
show,
clean.
Ben.
Yeah. Funny.
That is so good. You've talked a lot about wanting to spread the show, build awareness. I read that beyond theater groups, it's also now part of different chaplaincy training, healing grief groups, hospice fundraisers. Did you envision the meaning it could bring to places outside of the theater when you were creating this?
Definitely not.
That's
As
cool.
A COVID keeper. The
That's so
phrase
neat.
that the folks at my wife's summer camp have been using ever since COVID. When they went back to normal, they're like, wait, are there any COVID keepers? things that we did differently, and it turned out was better than ever before. And so for me, during COVID, I had to do this hard pivot. I couldn't do the ensemble show. I had to shrink it down to a one-man show and perform it on the laptop. That was very difficult for me. I talked at great length about that pivot. Suffice to say, it cost several $100s worth of coaching sessions to get through that decision process, worth every penny, because I needed to do it. I needed to pivot from I'm stuck, I can't do anything, to I can do something, right? So for me, the COVID Keeper was this one-man show. It was a necessity of COVID to perform it by myself because you couldn't do ensemble pieces with folks outside of your pod. If I could cast my whole love, my wife, daughter, and my dog, it would have been hard to cast just from inside our house. So we're looking at some sort of condensed version. And I hated the idea. My coach, Alex, shout out to Alex Palting, the Hustling Creative, he said, look, this isn't going to be forever. To quote Avenue Q, it's only for now. And we don't know if we're going to be doing like live theater from behind our laptops for the next week, month, or year. She was dealing with her own COVID heartbreak. She had an off-Broadway contract in hand, like she's a working actress. So she had gotten her dream job and then it was taken away from her. So we could commiserate about the disappointment, but then this is where the messiness of my journey comes into sharp relief, right? Because right before COVID, if you guys are curious, you're going to want to go onto my website, lifereviewmusical.com, and there's a trailer video there that's really well done. It was shot professionally and edited. So that footage was shot January 22, 2020, before the whole world shut down to live. So we're lucky that we got it in under the wire. Yeah. And the success, I have video footage to prove it somewhere. It was standing room only. We had literally over 200 people, Megan. It was amazing. And I was certain coming off of that performance that I was on a rocket ship off to the moon. Now, you guys know, without a spoiler, that there's no rocket ship after March of 2020, not for live.
That's right, yes.
There was something called the COVID wall that everyone hit. Everything that was in development included movies, TV programs, and of course, live theater.
Yeah.
Everything hit a wall for at least a little bit until they figured out, can we do this safely? And if it's a live audience thing, can we do it for a live audience safely? And if not, can we pivot to stream it or tape it? And if not, can we just reschedule for 1 year out? I remember those conversations. My friend Jason, who works in the music business, was hemorrhaging money during this time. He was devastated. Separate from the heartbreak of the show we had co-written.
Of course.
The COVID Keeper was this one-man show. So it had been created out of necessity. When the world opened up again, Gesundheit, I had now, instead of a show that was 2 hours and 20 minutes long, I now had it's actually 55-minute long show. 55-minute long show that I can bring anywhere in the world. I'm nimble. I can perform it from this room, black curtains, and I have performed it for money from this space for paying clients elsewhere in the world or elsewhere in the United States. And I have traveled to perform it. I recently went up to the Hudson Valley to perform a show at my boyhood synagogue, and that was wonderful for about 100 people, and brought along my piano player. I got a grant from Maryland State Arts Commission, and that helped to subsidize a couple of public-facing performances, including paying for a bunch of musicians from conservatory. Like, we're doing cool things with the project. It's great. And the one-man thing ends up being a hell of a lot more nimble because it's just me. I am also separately trying to stand up the full version in partnership with the theater. So if you, dear listeners, are curious about Life Review, you can DM me or go to the website, Life Review Musical. We have a contact form, and I certainly will write back.
Well, that was going to be my next question. I just have a few final questions to wrap us up here, but that was going to be my question, just how to support your work, how to find you, how can people see your show, all
So
the
if you
things, and we'll
search on
also share the
YouTube,
links.
I believe there
Okay.
is a video of the one-man show
Okay, very
formed
cool.
at Lifting the Lid Festival. I used to dislike the fact that it's out there, but now I'm like, it's okay. I
The
don't
more
think
people that
anyone's
see your
getting
work,
interested
right?
off getting rich off of it. So you can
Yeah.
search up my name at Benjamin Kintisch Life Review on YouTube and you can get some clips. I have a great website, lifereviewmusical.com. If you like hearing me talk, there's at least 30 podcast appearances listed up there. Go on
That's exciting.
a lot of shows.
Do you know what's
Sorry,
crazy?
Megan, but
But you know what's so crazy?
what's
I feel
crazy,
like you're
Megan?
giving me. There's been so many serendipity things that I just feel keep adding up as you're talking. I happen to have COVID today, which is so weird. I didn't know how much COVID was going to be coming up. I just took a test today because I've been feeling under the weather. And as we're talking, I just can't believe what a different world we have. It's just so surreal to me when I think of the world we were in and all of the things you're reminding me of with our pods and the way the world was. And then here I can be after treatment and vaccinations and everything, and all this time has gone by, and I can sit in
Yes.
my home and host a podcast and be okay, which I just
Yeah,
think
you
is
seem to
crazy.
be like
I've been sneezy a
a
little
no
bit.
big, right?
So that was one thought, but then also this is the 30th episode of Becoming is Messy. And so I think it's so funny
Congratulations.
when you say that you've done 30 guest spots. You are my 30th guest on Becoming is Messy. So I guess I've done 30 as well. Congratulations to us both on 30.
That's fantastic. The
Yes.
one thing about this messiness of I'm gonna call it dream chasing in telling my story, an imagined linear path did not present itself. There's like a
That's so true.
fallacy. There never was a linear path.
I know.
Even if you
Yes.
could redo history without COVID, and you can't.
Yes. Yep.
There used to be a podcast that's no longer available, but it was called Broadway Backstory. And basically, it told the development story of shows from the idea to Broadway debut. The only thing they had in common is that every backstory was different. Most of them were 2 years minimum, but a lot of them were 4, 6, 8, 10 years. I liked hearing those stories that were 10 years or more. I was like, okay, good. And it's not too
Yes.
late
Oh,
yet.
totally.
Not
No,
too
I
late
love
yet.
that. To me, that's just a microcosm of life. Things don't always happen overnight, but you follow the zigzag. And then when you look back, the zigzag does form a linear. It's wild, but it all connects somehow. So I think that's so
right.
cool. I have 2 questions to close us out. The first
Ready.
is, when this makes it to Broadway, who do you envision playing Rabbi David?
Oh, that's my role, and I'm going to hold on to it
All right,
all the way
love
to
it.
Broadway. However, after
Sweet.
1 year, I will
Yes.
relinquish the role.
Okay.
There's a fabulous actor who I saw. I can picture him. There's a few guys who have done Broadway roles that I enjoyed. Their name
Yes.
is, but yeah,
Yes,
sure
you
there
have
will be
some
some
visions after the
wonderful
first year.
middle-aged actors who will be happy to have a juicy
Yes.
role.
That's right.
But I
I'll
don't
be
want to give up
excited.
this role because it's one that I wrote. This was very much my story made
Yes, I love
fiction.
that.
So I want to embody it, and I think I do it well. And show
Yes.
where I'm the narrator, I sing songs of different characters. I'm able to present it in a way that is compelling to people, that draws them in, that moves them deeply. So that's exciting to me. The material is deep and moving. We're dealing with some heavy stuff, this life and death stuff. I consider it a great privilege to be the performer, to bring that music
Yes.
to life, to bring those lyrics that I wrote to life, and to help people break their heart open if they need to have their heart broken, or to heal a bit, or laugh a bit, or to do all those things. That's a privilege for me.
Yes. I hope I make it to the first year run and get to see
I'll have
you
to have
doing
a
that
discount for
someday.
podcast
Yes.
hosts who had
Perfect.
me as famous.
That's perfect. I have one final question we always
go.
close with on Becoming is Messy. There might be listeners right now who find themselves in their messy middle or what they feel like is their rock bottom. When you found yourself in those times in life, what advice do you wish would have arrived sooner?
So keep creating. I've been hearing from a lot of my songwriter friends. I go to an annual songwriting retreat. Many of us happen to be left of center and distressed about political happenings. There were a lot of discussions about how do you stay motivated? How do you keep your head above water? And the answer was like, actually, some of the most important stuff ever created was created during the darkest times. For instance, I'm a hip hop fan. A lot of the early hip hop came out of the rough and tumble times of a rough and tumble New York City, that it had to come out of the South Bronx and Queensbridge houses, reflecting a time and place. And where am I going with all of this? That all of us, I'm being specific to the challenging political situation, but I can say more broadly that I think writing specifically and creating more broadly is very healthy for a person going through struggle. And one thing I'm so proud of with this journey, I laugh and I sometimes make self-deprecating jokes because this show has literally taken over 10 years to this point, and we are still not at our destination. In a certain way, this is like the Broadway version of the Jews or the Israelites 40 years in the desert. Hopefully, it's not 40 years. If it's 40 years to get to Broadway, I'm going to have to hire someone else to play the role.
That's right.
I won't do the middle-aged star. But it has taken a while, and sometimes that feels frustrating, and sometimes the fact of it aggravates me. Let me just be real. A lot of times, things that take a long time, we're like, oh, I wish this would just go faster. But this is the pace at which these things have unfolded. Know what's in store for me next. What I can tell you is that you heard in some of our earlier conversation, this project, while not being specifically centered on a work trauma, happened close by that time, even though I've had a bunch of jobs that have taken me here and there in all kinds of interesting places. This creative project has been one constant, while my professional life has been sometimes like a pinball, ping, ping. So you can use a creative project as your North Star when the rest of your life feels deeply unsettled or unmoored, if you want to use the nautical metaphor, right? So your North Star could be that dream, but what I would encourage you to do for maximum benefit is make. You need to make. You need to write. You need to play with art stuff, especially stuff that you're not good at. It's hard to tell where, because most of the stuff in the back wall is done by, quote, real artists, not me, but two pieces up there above that framed art. That one, wait, I'm doing that one and that one.
Yeah.
I did those two. The rest were done by other professional artists. I love making art. I'm not a fine artist, but once in a while, I'll take out watercolors and I'll just sometimes I'll take a lyric from my show and then I'll make some pretty colors and take a photo of it and can use it for Instagram or just, it's nice to do. I find that playing in art stuff is often the best first step before I get to songwriting.
Yep.
But even if you're not trying to do a product, I would remind people that process is the thing that really gives us joy. It's the reason why children and old people who do art are so joyful, and all of us in the middle have to be reminded to act more like them on either end. So think about a preschooler to their elbows in paste or finger paint or paper mache. They're joyfully messy and having the best time. And whatever they make, they show they're grown up at pickup with terrific pride.
Yes.
And very quickly in elementary school, remember I'm a K-4 teacher, very quickly you see the slightly older children apologizing for their work and erasing too much and crossing things off, saying it's not good enough. And I'm like, it's okay, we're making a picture today. We're making a bulletin board. It's no big deal. And they're like, you're just... And all of that inner critic stuff, it's there at age 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
Yep.
as a professional songwriter, I have an inner critic. One technique I try to do is write faster than the inner critic can try to silence me.
That's good advice.
Yeah, so for anyone who's trying to write out there, keep your pen or your pencil moving. And don't be too preoccupied with the product. That was the point of bringing up the little kids, right? Tend to find pleasure in writing, especially when we're not worrying about who it's for. Play with a acrostic
fun.
with like your
Yes.
favorite, write macaroni and cheese down the left-hand column, and then write a little poem with those letters. You might find it more fun than you remember, and you might have not written a poem since you were like 10. As
I
education
agree.
goes. And you don't have to become a poet. You don't have to become a
No.
songwriter, but you might just surprise yourself. Playing with language is more accessible and more pleasurable than you remember. So that's my charge to all of you. To quote Hamilton, pick up the pen, start writing.
Oh, I love it. And I'm so glad to have met you. And I'm glad that you are continuing to create one of the philosophies here on Becoming is Messy. And the whole purpose of the podcast is to be able to talk about the things that we usually don't talk about, to talk about the messy parts and make them not so messy, and to be able to learn and grow and heal from them. What you are doing with the hospice and end of life space is just incredible. I'm excited to watch the show and spread the word.
Thanks,
and see
Megan.
what happens next for you. Thank you for being here. And to our listeners, keep tuning in, keep showing up. And until next time, remember, your mess is your magic. Thank you.
Take care, guys. Thanks.
Before we wrap today, I want to invite you to be part of the Becoming is Messy community. Subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss a single episode. And if there's anything that resonates with you, please leave a review. Your feedback means the world to me, and it helps other people find this community. Follow me on social media. I'd love to hear your ideas for future topics, your questions, and stories from your own messy moments. And if you're feeling inspired, check out the Becoming is Messy shop, where you can grab a mug, a t-shirt, or something else that reminds you to embrace your messy magic every single day. A huge thank you to the incredible Wolves and Sheep for providing the music for Becoming is Messy. Check them out on your favorite music streaming platform. As we close out today's episode, remember this: messy is just another word for growing. So keep showing up, keep laughing, and keep making beautifully awkward progress. Until next time, stay messy, my friends.